What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. Today I want to talk to you today about something important. And did I just go redundant on today? I want to talk to you about something today. The Department of Redundancy Department. I love it. You know what? I'm going to throw in today every other word just to make it interesting. But there's a trope. I don't know if it's a trope, which is different than tripe. Delicious tripe. You can get it on sale at your local grocer. Sear it in a hot pan and just go at it. Oh, so chewy. So chewy. More calories spent chewing it than eating it. But listen, I want to talk to you today about a problem that Hollywood has conveyed to me that soldiers suffer from. And I don't really know if it exists. And I know some of the people on this channel have military service, and I don't mean just soldiers. You can be an airman, or a seaman, or a coastie, or a marine, or a cyber warrior, or a merchant marine, or a Wing Chun expert. I don't know all of the roles that you might play in the military, but it strikes me that I think it was Captain America, that movie, as well as I recall it in Homeland, that TV show, where there's this idea, maybe it was even in 13 Hours, but there's this idea that soldiers go abroad and they live in inhospitable conditions. Maybe some become POWs or have to live in their bivy sack on the desert floor or spend their time in a foreign prison or a prisoner of war camp or whatever, and are treated inhospitably. They sleep on the ground and somehow they come to love it. Or not love it, but become accustomed to it. Maybe that's the better word. So much that when they return back to civilization, they can't sleep in a bed. I think the idea in Captain America was, the bed is too soft. I couldn't get used to it. And in Homeland, I think he's sleeping in the bed for a few minutes and then his wife wakes up to find him sleeping on the floor. So the idea here is that, oh man, I have had such poor accommodations for so long. I'm just so used to it. I don't feel comfortable without abusing myself on the hard floor or the concrete or the sidewalk or the dirt floor or whatever. And I'm just kind of curious. Is this a real thing? Is this trope real? Have you served overseas? Have you been in a prisoner camp? Have you been an outdoorsman and been on the road so long that you have slept in a tent and on hard ground or whatever, that when you got back to all of the creature comforts that you get in modern civilization, that you can't stand them. You can't even tolerate them. You jump in a bed and start to fall asleep and you're like, I can't fall asleep because I don't have any pressure points on my shoulders and my hips. I don't feel rocks poking into my spine or bugs crawling over my face or whatever it might be. The reason I'm skeptical about this is because I have never had a problem adjusting back to society. I think back to one particular instance. We did, with some of my buddies, a 12-day overland and backpacking trip. And between sleeping in your own tent that you had to carry on various terrains, and I remember in one case, we couldn't even find flat terrain. How uncomfortable it is to kind of sleep canted up, basically like at an angle. You feel like you're sliding down the hill. You feel like you're sliding into your sleeping bag. So one thing I definitely like is just perfectly flat level ground. Sometimes it's not that easy to find depending on where you are camping or hiking, but we would do that. And some days we were so tired, we didn't even put up the tents. I remember one day we just pulled out a tarp and put 2 feet of sticks underneath to just create a little bit of a shelter from the rain that was just 2 feet up above the ground, and then we all crawled underneath and fell asleep. One day we found one of those trail shelters, like a half of a log cabin, and it was filled with rats and other things, and we were so tired, dude, we just slept in it. But one thing that didn't happen is after the 12 days, when we finally got back to the local town and we ended up sleeping in a motel, a no-tell motel, you know, where the doors open directly to the outside. I don't know, 20 rooms. It's like a long building, almost like a barracks or something. But those cheap hotels, and you get there and the mattresses are lumpy. They're pretty old. These are not 4-season accommodations. These are the basics. But I remember taking a hot shower after 12 days of not showering, and then climbing into bed with relatively clean bed sheets, but your body hadn't felt bed sheets in a while, and immediately falling asleep on the bed and having an awesome, restful, relaxing sleep. Now, if I were to sleep in that bed right now, like in 10 minutes or something, I would probably say, oh my gosh, it's so lumpy. Oh, it's decrepit. I can feel the springs or I can hear them or whatever it might be. But in that moment, there was no difficulty for me to transition from the rough, unforgiving, inhospitable accommodations that I felt on the trail to even the most meager of civilized accommodations. So I'm just kind of curious. I've never had that problem transitioning back from roughing it to not roughing it. Has anyone else? Maybe there's a certain period of time where your body becomes so adjusted that it wants that. It craves being abused like that. And maybe just in my pampered life, I haven't gotten past that threshold, but maybe some of you have. Maybe 2 tours in Iraq or Afghanistan or overseas or in the desert, in the jungles or whatever it might be. And you came back and it took a while to transition. I'm just kind of curious. Has anyone actually had that happen? Or is this a Hollywood trope that says, man, those conditions toughen up soldiers so much they just become a part of the wilderness, of the wildlife out there, and it's like an animal that can't be conditioned back to the soft, fluffy trappings of a normal life? I don't know. I'm just asking the question because it's never happened to me. Every time I see it, I cringe a little bit because I can't wrap my head around that's an issue, but they always present it like this is something that happens so much, and hardened guys share this experience. I don't know. If that's happened to you and you've had trouble transitioning back to a comfortable life, let me know. If you have been out there in the wilderness for a long time and you don't have a problem transitioning back to the trappings of a regular life, let me know too. I'm just curious if it's made up or if it actually exists anywhere. That's it for today. Peter Von Panda. Out.
We can discover more and explore so much deeper. We can live better than